Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Hello and welcome in to another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik, and this is episode number 216 of the Baseball Podcast. That's right, episode number 216 here on Monday, July 27th. Hopefully everybody out there had a lovely weekend. It was the first weekend of baseball since last October. Oh my goodness, the first day of sports since March here in Philadelphia. Locally, it was 132 days in between sporting events for Philadelphia sports teams. It's just the longest we've gone in between sports in the history of sports. I mean, looking at baseball, we've at least had minor league baseball for over 100 years. As we've discussed in previous podcasts, never do I believe before has the NBA shut down, NHL, March Madness, all of the above. So, oh man, 132 days, just over 4 months, but we finally made it. We are here. We have actual baseball to discuss, and it is a glorious Monday, July 27th. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this on your way to work or your way back from work, running some errands, whatever you got going on here. Hopefully it's a beautiful day out there, but thanks for joining us on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. But we'll dive right into it. Segment number 1 and 2, we're going to talk about the games this past weekend, keep you guys up to date on everything going on. In the third segment, we'll have an update on the coronavirus concerns, touch base on some individual statistics, what's going on with the Blue Jays, and then we're going to wrap things up previewing the second series. Since I talk to you guys every Monday and Thursday, it kind of works out because those are typically the transition days in between series. You play for the weekend, Monday's off, you play Monday, you go to Thursday, so it'll be a nice timing perspective to be able to discuss series by series with you guys what exactly is going on out there. So, jumping right into it, going from the American League to the National League here in the first segment, we'll talk about the American League starting in the East with the surprise of Major League Baseball, or one of two surprises, I would say, based on the results of opening weekend. But that was the Baltimore Orioles taking 2 out of 3 from the Boston Red Sox. And honestly, a lot of the sabermetrics, a lot of the analytics had Boston, or Baltimore actually, with an opportunity more in games 2 and 3. Game 1 was heavy Boston, which is basically how the results played out. I was able to make a little bit of money. I took Baltimore in games 2 and 3. They were both at plus 140, so I was able to win some nice cash there on the money line for Baltimore, and the Orioles came through. But game 1, let's see here. Eovaldi, he was fantastic. That 13-2 was the result there in favor of Baltimore. Then game 2, game 1 was Boston. What am I talking about? Game 1 was Boston, game 2 was Baltimore, and then game 3 was Baltimore as well. But let's see. Alex Cobb got his first win in 2 years on Saturday. Shout out to Alex Cobb coming back from an injury report there. Obviously want to give a shout out there. A couple of years in between victories is a long, long time. And then in game 3, Boston's pitching ultimately let them down, and that's really going to be a theme for the year. I mean, we talked about it. Nathan Eovaldi, he was fantastic. Game 1, the bat showed up. They crushed baseballs 13-2. But then the rest of the starting rotation, without Chris Sale, without Rodriguez, who is out for COVID-19 reasons, the depth there just dissipates really quickly. And the back end at Boston isn't very strong either. Giving up 7 runs back-to-back days to the Orioles offense doesn't really foresee a tremendous future for that Boston bullpen and rotation, having to go up against the likes of Toronto's lineup, New York's lineup, Tampa's lineup, and then even in the National League East a handful of times there. So, as I previewed during the offseason, I think Boston may be in for a bit of a long summer here. They are on the way to their rebuild process. Chaim Bloom up in the general manager spot. He's probably licking his chops at a top pick and being able to rebuild this thing the way he sees fit. But shout out to Baltimore and Orioles fans out there. You guys deserve a scotch or a whiskey or whatever you like to toast yourself with at the end of the weekend here, because 2-1 at the top of the division. Take a picture while it lasts. I don't think it's going to be too long. Let's see. The next series in the AL East, Tampa Bay versus Toronto. Tampa Bay takes 2 of 3, but it was a very evenly contested series. I was impressed by the Blue Jays. I thought Tampa would handle them at home, opening series, their pitching staff, but Toronto is going to be tough. They may be 1 year away from ultimately contending due to the pitching staff, the rotation, some concerns there, but that offense is going to be a fun one to watch all year. Toronto won opening day 6-4. Biggio had a 3-run home run, which ultimately was the difference. Tampa Bay stormed back, taking the next 2. They won game 2, 4-1. Brandon Lowe's 8th inning triple broke a late tie there, and they extended the lead. And then Sunday's game, 6-5, went 10 innings, and Kiermaier hit a 10th inning triple. That ultimately was the difference there in Tampa Bay. So we've had a handful of extra inning games in regards to putting the runner on second base. We've seen one team bunt, sack, fly. They score one, win a game without actually recording an at-bat in the 10th inning. We've seen other teams hit away, grand slams, triples. We've seen teams hit away, strike out the side. We've seen a little bit of it all. It's kind of been an interesting point so far to kind of see which team takes, kind of which plan of attack for the extra innings. But Tampa Bay swinging away there. They get a triple in the 10th to ultimately win that series. And then the Yankees and Nationals. This one was a cross-reference. Since we're talking American League here in the first segment, we'll take a Yankees point of view here. Opening night, the first game of the year. If it wasn't 2020 in a nutshell, I don't know exactly what is, but the New York Yankees beat the Washington Nationals 4-1 in a rain-shortened game. It only went 6 innings. The gods basically said, hey, you guys have waited this long for baseball. Have fun for 6 innings, but boom, you're not going to see the end of the game. And let's see. From the Yankees' perspective, Garrett Cole was very strong. Giancarlo Stanton hit a ball very, very far, very, very hard off of Max Scherzer. He looks fantastic early on coming back from that injury. He is obviously in tremendous shape. If he can stay healthy and keep swinging the bat like he has this weekend, he could potentially be in line for some MVP conversation because he had a couple of home runs here in the opening weekend. Washington bounced back to win Game 2, 9-2. James Paxton, not very good from a starter's perspective for the New York Yankees. That rotation could be an issue for them in the depth going up against some of these lineups, but it's one time through. It could just be a blip. But again, one game is worth 2.7 games, so each series is just about 8 games. So if you take 2 out of 3, think of it as going 5-3 or 3-5 here. These things can expedite quickly over the course of the next couple of weeks. But Game 3, the Yankees bounce back. They win 3-2. Gleyber Torres rallies late, pitching by committee in this game. A lot of people going 1 to 2 innings. It'll be fascinating to see if New York continues to implement that moving forward, or if that just happened to be happenstance here on a Sunday. Hey, this is what we're going with. Or, hey, every time this time through the rotation, it's going to be a committee game where everybody's going 1 inning, 2 innings, depending on how you're doing out there. So right now in the American League East, like I said, Baltimore at the top. Baltimore, Tampa, New York, all 2-1. Toronto and Boston at 1-2. Let's transition over to the Central now, starting off with Cleveland versus Kansas City. Cleveland takes 2 out of 3 from Kansas City. That's to be assumed. Kansas City is one of the rebuilding teams here in 2020. Cleveland took Game 1 2-0. Bieber had the start of the weekend, potentially. Him and a gentleman from the NL Central both threw extremely well. I'd probably give it to the other guy, but if we're going American League, National League, Bieber is your guy in the American League. 14 strikeouts, 6 scoreless innings. Very impressive from the ace for the Indians, who started out last year as their number 5, number 4, something like that. He was low in the rotation, ended up making the All-Star game, became the All-Star MVP, and then here he is continuing that momentum into 2020, and shoves just nasty. If you guys want to watch pitching highlights, if you're a youngster out there looking to kind of emulate somebody in the big leagues, pull up Bieber's highlights, watch his mechanics, watch his delivery, his deception. It's fantastic to watch. And 14 strikeouts over 6 innings, I mean, you're only getting 18 outs. in 6 innings. So I don't know what that percentage is off the top of my head. What, divided by 7 out of 9? What's that percentage? Just crazy, crazy high. But obviously had everything going that he needed there opening day. In Game 2, Kansas City won in extra innings. This was one of the events where a sac fly got it done. Maikel Franco, now in Kansas City, no longer in Philadelphia, gets things done with a sac fly. Holland then came in the bottom half of the 10th inning and struck out the side. So Cleveland decided to hit away after Kansas City plays some small ball. Strike everybody out, says Mr. Holland, and we'll see you tomorrow with a victory in Kansas City. But the Indians bounce back, like I said, to take the series. Carlos Carrasco wins his first start just over a year post-leukemia. So he is officially back from his cancer diagnosis, back in the rotation, feeling 100%. And congratulations to Carlos for winning his first start back, and the Cleveland Indians taking 2 out of 3 from Kansas City. Jumping around here, Minnesota versus the White Sox. Oh, man, if you don't live in Central America like me, Greater Philadelphia, East Coast, West Coast, maybe you don't get the Twins-White Sox games routinely on your television. But if you have the ability to watch this, whether it's MLB TV or you find something streaming online, now that it's 2020 and a lot of stuff is available out there, check out the Twins, check out the White Sox. If they happen to play each other, tune into these matchups, because the over hit in every one of these games. Everyone was an offensive juggernaut back and forth. Double digits scored by the winning team in each game. Ultimately, the Twins coming out on top, taking 2 of 3 in the first game. It was just a home run fest. I mean, not only the first game, but all 3 games here. Game 1 went 10-5 in favor of Minnesota. Barrios gets hit around a little bit, but Kepler homers twice. The 10 spot, obviously, carries Barrios to the W. Then the White Sox bounce back with a 10-3 win. Garcia homers twice for the White Sox. And then in the third game, Minnesota wraps things up with a 14-2 butt kicking. Nelson Cruz is the star of the afternoon with 7 RBIs, 2 home runs, and just a 40-year-old still getting things done there in Minnesota. Kind of fascinating to watch. Wrapping up the AL Central, the Detroit Tigers take 2 out of 3 from the Cincinnati Reds. Man, Detroit is the other surprise in Baltimore. Detroit and Baltimore, 2 teams that were picked to possibly be the worst in the American League, find themselves enjoying the opening weekend in this 60-game sprint so far. Cincinnati took Game 1 against the Tigers 7-1, but Detroit bounced back, winning Game 2 6-4, and then Sunday's Game 3 rubber match 3-2. In the first game, Mike Moustakas tore him up from Cincinnati's perspective, but then in Game 2, Jacoby Jones' 2-run home run in the 9th inning broke a 4-4 tie. They take advantage of Cincinnati's bullpen. Miguel Cabrera hit a home run, number 478. He continues to climb the ladder. All-time home runs. I don't think he's going to get to 500 this year in a shortened year. He probably would have if it was 162. Next on the list, there are a couple gentlemen at 493, which is 15 home runs. Man, that would be a really, really solid year for Cabrera. Honestly, I even think he falls a little bit short of that milestone there, 493. But he continues to keep climbing, so shout out to Miguel. And then in Sunday's matchup, C.J. Cron hit a 2-run homer in the 9th inning off of Cincinnati's bullpen. So Detroit taking advantage of some late opportunities given to them by Cincinnati, find themselves 2-1, tied for first place in the AL Central. And let's see here. Now we jump out west to the American League West as we're wrapping up the first segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We have the Houston Astros against the Seattle Mariners. Houston takes 2 of 3. Seattle bounces back, wins Sunday's game 7-6. Houston took game 1 8-2. Justin Verlander wins that matchup. Michael Brantley hits a home run, but pause there for just a second. Reports about Justin Verlander are he's going to miss the rest of the season. The media is up in arms. Hey, he's done. Elbow issue. He's not going to make it. He was just coming off the hamstring. And then a few hours later, or a few moments later, Justin Verlander tweets out, reports of an elbow injury and being done for the year are inaccurate. And it's just a forearm strain. And I'm hoping it'll be in a couple of weeks. And then we'll re-examine it at that point. And then we'll be good to go. So is it the full year? Is it a couple of weeks? Either way, I think you're looking at a month, 2 months. That's where the reports are coming out, probably saying the whole year, because 2 months is the entire year. So if you're looking at 6 weeks, you're looking at a playoff push getting Verlander back. It's going to be fascinating to follow along. But he won opening day. Lance McCullers Jr. returned from Tommy John surgery to win Game 2. And then the Houston was in line to win Game 3, but blown late lead by the bullpen. The Mariners rally in the 8th inning and avoid the sweep down there in Houston to get their first victory of the year. Next up, we had the Athletics and the Angels. Oakland took Game 1 in extra innings. Opening night, Friday, we said, hey, let's go. Let's test out this extra inning rule right away. Oakland was not a squad. They went with the bunt, sac fly. They tried to hit away ultimately and ended up working out because Olsen hit a grand slam to give them the 7-3 victory in 10 innings over the Angels. The Angels, however, bounced back in Game 2. Dylan Bundy had an impressive start. Upton hit a home run. They won that game 4-1. And then the rubber match in Game 3, Oakland took that matchup because Shohei Ohtani couldn't record an out. It was his first start returning from Tommy John surgery. Hadn't thrown competitively in a game in a long, long time. Had done so in practice. Looked good, but Ohtani, 0 outs. So infinity ERA, 3 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks, all over the place. Couldn't find the zone. Hopefully it's just first time back jitters, kind of a little bit of the yips, and this isn't the pitching side of things now with Ohtani coming back from injury, and he can continue to kind of find himself and find his way, but it was certainly not a great first impression coming back off the injury. So Oakland takes 2 out of 3 off the top from the Angels, and then lastly we had the Rockies and the Rangers. Let's see, Colorado takes 2 out of 3 from Texas as Texas opens up their home new ballpark with a victory on Friday night, 1-0. Lance Lynn threw 6 scoreless innings. The bullpen carried out the shutout. It was an impressive debut in a brand new, beautiful ballpark there in Arlington. However, Colorado bounced back with victories 3-2 and 5-2 over the Rangers. And Daniel Bard's first win in 7 years in relief on Saturday night. And then Trevor Story hitting a couple of home runs. But the big story from Texas side of things is Corey Kluber only went 1 inning on Sunday before he had to leave with some discomfort in his arm. And there's concern in Texas, probably more so than it seems from Kluber himself at this point, but it gets back to the issues of, hey, even if this isn't serious, shut you down for a couple of weeks, which means we then need to ramp you back up for a week or 2. So if this is quote-unquote non-serious, this is a month, which is half the season. So if it's a best-case scenario, you're looking at half the games for him down there in Texas for Kluber, and they're already rebuilding. So first impressions, wrapping up the first segment here. Like I said, Baltimore and Detroit, the surprises going 2-1. Everything else kind of went status quo, but no sweeps in the American League opening weekend here. But let's pause now for a word from one of our sister shows and one of our sponsors here as we wrap up the first segment. When we come back, we'll talk about the National League. We'll dive around East, Central, West. What the heck happened this past weekend? Stick around. You're going to find out. This is Kevin Mahalik, the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everybody, to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. This is episode number 216 here on Monday, July 27th. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you haven't done so already, head to social media. Check out the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We got a page up there on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We post our latest episodes on Facebook, as well as keep you guys up to date with everything that's going on Twitter. We're a lot more active now that baseball is back. Certainly a lot more to talk about, discuss, retweet, takes, everything that's going on out there. So make sure you stay up to date on everything and give us a follow, give us a like. As well as wherever you're listening to us, give us a 5-star rating. If it's Apple Podcasts, hit the star. all the way on the right. Right below that, there's a write a review portion. Hit that. Type in 5 stars, write a review. Let us know how we're doing out there and if you guys are enjoying the content coming from GSMC. We certainly appreciate it here. But continuing our trip around Major League Baseball from this past weekend, keeping you guys up to date on everything going on. We're now talking about the National League. Starting out with the NL East, the Miami Marlins take 2 of 3 from the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Marlins just continue to own the Phillies. They are just paying rent in their head. It's unbelievable. I mean, as a Phillies guy, again, from the city of Philadelphia, this team last year was a bugaboo or a thorn in the Phillies' side, finishing exactly 500, missing the playoffs, and that's because of an under 500 record against the Marlins. And they're just not a good baseball team in Miami, but they just have that little niche going against the Phils, where they just know they can beat them and frustrate them. So they win Game 1, Miami 5-2. Alcantara, he was absolutely fantastic. Aguilar hit a home run off of Aaron Nola as he started running out of gas. The Phillies bounce back and take Game 2. Zach Wheeler was very strong in his debut. Phil Gosselin hit 2 home runs. That's right. The same Phil Gosselin who hadn't hit a home run since 2018. The same Phil Gosselin I played against in college when he was at the University of Virginia. I was at Lehigh University. He played growing up with one of my buddies in high school, so a really good dude, really rooting for him. He had a few hits on Sunday as well. He's swinging a hot bat right now, so shout out to Phil Gosselin. Ends up making the team over Josh Harrison. Makes Girardi look like a genius by going deep twice on Saturday as Gosselin was the designated hitter. On Sunday, Miami won 11-6. Vince Velasquez, he sucks. I'm sorry. He stinks. It's just not good. So every year, hey, he's got a cutter, change up. He's working on this, he's working on that, and it's the same song and dance with Vinny Velo. And Spencer Howard is going to be up for the Phillies next time through the rotation in his spot. And if he's not, the crowd or the fans here in Philadelphia are not going to be pleased. I guess not the crowd, but certainly the fans. And they're going to let ownership know in their own right. Let's see. The New York Mets, they are 1-2. The Atlanta Braves take 2 out of 3 from the New York Mets. I'm speaking a little bit ahead here as I'm recording late Sunday night. It is 10-1 Atlanta on Sunday, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to hang on to this matchup. But the Mets took Game 1, 1-0. Jacob deGrom was Jacob deGrom, scoreless. Atlanta couldn't get anything going offensively off of anybody. Diaz had a shutdown ninth, looked good for the save for the Mets. But then you come back Saturday night, Diaz blows the save. Ozuna struck out on an outside fastball Friday night. Diaz threw pretty much the same pitch to him on Sunday. Ozuna, being the professional he is, the 10-year vet, he just basically made the adjustment and he popped it out to right field for the tie on Saturday, and ultimately Atlanta wins it in the 10th on some heroics by, oh God, who was it? The shortstop. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I didn't write it down. I'm not sure why. So let's see. Sunday, like I said, 10-1 Braves. They're going to take 2 out of 3 Atlanta. That's what you expected with the Mets rotation there in New York. The Nationals, Yankees. We talked about it from the Yankees side. The Nationals' perspective now, the Yankees took 2 out of 3, so Washington finds themselves in a little bit of trouble here early on. Max Scherzer gave up a couple of more long balls in the opener. Giancarlo Stanton took him deep. This was after his last start in spring training against the Phillies when Harper and Gregorius both took him yards. So some concerns about Scherzer. Yes, he looked good. Velocity was there. Stuff was there. Strikeouts were there. But the long ball seems to be creeping into his arsenal a little bit and could catch up with him. And then in Game 2, Steven Strasburg was scratched due to some tightness in his arm. And once again, there's not huge concern about what's going on with Strasburg. But if it's a couple of weeks, a week to get back, same song and dance that I talked about with you guys in the last segment, you're going to miss him for about a month. And with the Nationals already having a couple of opt-outs, Juan Soto testing positive hours before the opener. We're going to get into the coronavirus and the effects that that's had a little bit more in the third segment, but just wanted to bring up that point here as we're talking about the Nationals. And then in Game 3, Gleyber Torres wins it late for the Yankees, and this is basically just telling you that Washington still has bullpen issues. This was the thorn in their side last year, even though they are World Series champions. Their tough start early was due to a lot to the bullpen deficiencies, and then made a couple additions in the offseason. Will Harris, some others, but still, I don't think it's going to be enough in Washington. And this is going to be a race. I think Atlanta is really going to say, hey, we're going to win this division and run away with it. But Washington, Philadelphia, and New York, all thought to be potential wild card teams with the expanded playoffs now, all have wild card goals. And if they don't, it will certainly be a failure. But all have their problems, and none of them are complete units. That's for sure. So transitioning now to the National League Central, the Pirates played the Cardinals. The Cardinals took 2 out of 3. St. Louis won the opener 5-4. Flaherty was strong in his opening day start. Very typical from Flaherty. High velocity, high intensity, just high entertainment from Flaherty there in St. Louis. They bounce back, come back again, win 9-1 on Saturday. Goldschmidt hit a home run. Wainwright was strong. Standard ingredients for a St. Louis Cardinals victory. Good offense, good pitching, good defense. Kind of get in and out of here. Very workmanlike on Saturday for the Cardinals. But Sunday, Pittsburgh bounced back. They get off the schneid. Shelton ended up getting tossed from Pittsburgh, kind of stirring the pot up a little bit here. And if you haven't seen the video yet of this argument between Shelton, the manager for the Pirates, and I don't know the name of the umpire behind the dish, but basically was yelling out from the dugout about balls and strikes. He ends up getting tossed. And the rules are you're not allowed to argue. You're not allowed to get close with the umpire. Well, Shelton has the mask on because he's in the dugout. And as he's coming out to talk to the umpire goes into his pocket and is trying to put his mask on to be respectful. Shelton stops. The umpire kind of keeps walking at him. Shelton starts backing up because he's like, hey, I don't want to get in trouble for getting close. And yet I do want to yell at you. And just kind of habitually, they start getting closer and closer. Shelton realizes it, backs up. It was just fascinating to be like, I'm mad at you, but hold on. Let me put on my mask real quick. Just wait. I can't get it on. So hold on. Okay, now we can yell at each other, but back up because we got to be 6 feet apart. And since we're talking loud, the particles in our mouth are going to fly further, so get 7 feet apart. It's just, man, baseball in 2020. Things I thought I'd never see certainly are keeping me entertained here this opening weekend. But the Cubbies and the Brewers also played. Chicago takes 2 out of 3. I do like Chicago more than Milwaukee, but I don't think either of these teams are ultimately going to be very strong. And based on this weekend, the Cubs were more of a surprise than Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee, what you see is what you get here these first 3 games. And game 1 was a shutout for the Cubs. This is the gentleman I spoke about who would be the pitcher of the weekend in the National League, Kyle Hendricks, threw a complete game shutout. Always love to see the Ivy League guy be successful. Myself being Patriot League, we like to consider ourselves Ivy League or just a little bit below that. So shout out to the Dartmouth kid continuing to get things done. Complete games, very, very rare in this day and age of baseball. So super impressive to see a complete game, especially on opening day coming out of a pandemic with a shortened summer camp. So, man, really impressive the more and more you think about it there with Hendricks. Game 2, it went Milwaukee's way, 8-3. Yelich and Smoke hit home runs. Christian Yelich bounced back there a little bit. He continues to rake. I don't have an issue with him. Obviously, I think he'll continue to put up close to MVP numbers. It's what's around him that I think has, failed for 2020 in Milwaukee. And let's see, the bench has almost cleared that game. So we've had an argument in Pittsburgh, and then we almost had arguments in Milwaukee. And basically what happened is, with no fans in the stands, both dugouts can hear the chirping. The umpires can hear it, the dugouts can hear it. So if they're talking to somebody in the dugout about somebody else over there extremely loud, they can hear it. And apparently that's what happened. Somebody said something back. Both dugouts came to the top step, but the umpires were all over it and basically were like, dudes, you guys can't get suspended for this. Just back it up. Let's be smart here. Let's have some fun. But tensions were high opening weekend in Chicago and Milwaukee. It was fun to see. It was fun to see some rivalry juices flowing, even though everybody's trying to be safe and keep their distance. The intensity of regular season baseball is still there and still prevalent. That was fun. Chicago took game 3, 9-1. Chatwood had 3 hits or gave up 3 hits over 6 innings for the Cubbies. A nice start for Mr. Chatwood there. Wrapping up the National League Central, Cincinnati at Detroit. Like we talked about, Detroit taking 2 of 3. Moustakas beat them up in game 1. And then Detroit taking advantage of the bullpen in games 2 and 3. If you're looking statistically at the starting pitching in Cincinnati, I mean, looking at strikeouts, they got numbers 2, 3, and 6. Sonny Gray had 9 strikeouts in 6 innings. Castillo, 11 strikeouts in 6 innings. Bauer, 13 and 6 1/3. They gave up a combined 3 earned runs in 18 innings. So the starting staff had an ERA of 1.74 over the opening weekend, which is historical for the Cincinnati Reds, and yet lost 2 out of 3. So could have, should have swept the Tigers, and yet here you are looking up at the basement in the NL Central at 1-2 with the likes of the Pirates and the Brewers. So a frustrating opening weekend for Cincinnati, my surprise team in the National League based off that rotation, but maybe they just they don't have enough to overcome the bullpen, and offensively it was really hit or miss there. So they're going to need some more consistency from that side if ultimately they want to make a move. Going now to the National League West. Let's see. The San Diego Padres, they are 2-1. They took 2 out of 3 from the Arizona Diamondbacks. San Diego won game 1, 7-2. Eric Hosmer had 6 RBIs, 6 of the 7 RBIs opening day for San Diego. Chris Paddock was solid on the mound, giving up a couple of runs there. Game 2 went San Diego's way, 5-1. Manny Machado hit a home run. Will Myers hit a home run. Again, only 1 run for the Diamondbacks, 3 runs in the first 2 games. Where is their offense? Well, it finally showed up Sunday as Arizona became the last team in 2020 to find themselves in the win column. Every other team had won by Sunday afternoon. Arizona didn't pull off the victory until the 4 o'clock game. Everybody else had won at that point. So it's Arizona getting on the board at 1-2 here. And while I'm talking, Atlanta's playing home run derby in Citi Field here. So as it was 10-1 earlier, it's now 12-1 as 2 solo home runs, and they were not wall scrapers. Man, they are just launching balls in Citi Field. But Arizona takes game 3, 4-3. Late action there. The Diamondbacks score late to take the victory and get in the win column, like I mentioned. We have the Dodgers and Giants. They're playing a 4-game set. Game 4 will not have commenced by time of recording here Sunday night, but they're still 3 games into this series with LA currently leading 2-1. Let's see. Opening night, Mookie Betts had a single in his first game. The Dodgers were a little bit slow out of the gates, but ultimately Hernandez with 5 RBIs late led them to an 8-1 victory over the Giants, as after Cueto exited the game for the Giants, really wasn't much going on for them, and ultimately it kind of went the way we all expected it to. Friday night's game was 9-1 Dodgers. Pretty much a replay of Thursday night's game, really, if you watch the game. Max Muncy hit a couple of home runs, so they got to the runs a little bit differently, but overall the recap and the vibe in the stadium was pretty much the same there, as a total of 17-2 Dodgers over the Giants for the first couple of games, which is makes it even more fascinating that San Francisco was able to come back and get the victory on Saturday. They took advantage of Alex Wood's struggles early on, and then ultimately hung on for the victory. They were up 5-0. LA in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings was trying to push back for the victory, but the bullpen hung on for San Francisco, and they got their first victory of the year. And then Sunday night here, it'll be game 4. Obviously, LA Dodgers are extreme favorites to take 3 out of 4 to start off the year here. And then the last squad, the Colorado Rockies, taking 2 out of 3 from Texas. Like we talked about in the last segment, they lost game 1. Lance Lynn couldn't get anything going. But after that, bounced back, won a game late in game 2. Daniel Bard, once again, had his first win in 7 years. So just fancy that, man. 7 years in between Major League appearances, Major League victories. I just wanted to shout that out again. Think about where you were in 2013. What the heck was going on? Well, that was the last time something happened. That happened on Saturday for Daniel Bard. And then Sunday, Trevor Story hit a couple of home runs after Corey Kluber exited the game, but impressive again from Trevor, returning home to his home state of Texas, where we all know he likes to play. But no surprises here. Let's see. In the East, the Marlins winning 2 out of 3. I say no surprises because I'm a Phillies fan and know that the Marlins own the Phillies, but I guess nationally that would have been a surprise to see Miami at the top of the division, tied with the Braves. In the Central, you got the Cubbies and the Cardinals off to a good start, and then out west, LA will look to go to 3-1 here later tonight. I look for that to happen, and then Colorado and San Diego behind them at 2-1. But that wraps up the conversation on the games that have already been played. Oh gosh, that was a lot of fun. That last half hour, I've been waiting months to talk to you guys about that type of stuff. But Whew, it's fun. So we're going to pause right now, though. We're going to stop for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. When we come back, we're going to get a little more doom and gloom. We're going to talk about the coronavirus, a few things that are popping up, what it's going to mean for the future, and dive into some statistics here early on for the first weekend from some guys. So stick around, everybody. This is Kevin Mahalik with the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, here Monday, July 27th. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend out there and is excited for even more baseball moving forward this week. Not a lot of off days this year. I gotta be honest with you. I only saw it once, and I think it was the Yankees in Washington, but every year, normally, opening day, Major League Baseball, not for every team, but it just seems to be the Phillies more often than not. I don't know if this is local Comcast or what the deal is, but they have opening day, then they have the next day off, and then they get into the marathon of Major League Baseball and not having days off every so often. But it didn't happen this year for the Fightin' Phils, but that second off day drives me nuts. I mean, baseball comes back for the first time in a couple of months, and then all of a sudden the next day it's like, man, now we got to sit here again with nothing going on. I was just all excited to get into the routine of daily baseball. And the Yankees and Nationals were the only ones where they took a day off and then finished up the 3-game set here on Sunday, as opposed to playing 4 like the Dodgers and Giants did, since they opened up the day earlier than everybody else here on Thursday of this past week. But that's enough of that, enough complaining. Let's dive in here to the third segment, where we are talking about the coronavirus. Of course, we're talking about the coronavirus. Did you guys think we were going to get away from this since baseball was actually back and there were games being played? You weren't going to have to hear about me talk to you about the virus, the counts, what's going on, health, safety, protocols, everything that's going on in Major League Baseball. You thought you were going to get away from it? Well, not so fast, my friend, to quote a Mr. Lee Corso from College Game Day. I talked to you guys last episode about how there was a gentleman during the scrimmages who tested positive for the Royals, I believe, after facing the Astros, going back and forth. Well, now we've seen it become even more of a thing with two different clubs in particular so far. But the big one that everybody's reporting on or talking about is the Miami Marlins. And they were in town here in Philadelphia, so I obviously know what's going on since they were talking about it on every broadcast, all 3 games, specifically Sunday, since that's really when it came into effect. And basically what happened is there are 4 positives for the Marlins, 3 of them being new to their team. So they're in Philadelphia playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturday into Sunday is when these tests came back positive for these individuals. Garrett Cooper, a starting outfielder for the Marlins, Harold Ramirez, a starting outfielder, and Jose Urena, who was supposed to be the starting pitcher on Sunday. Their results came back positive for coronavirus from Saturday into Sunday. Now, the manager of the Marlins, he basically said, we've done everything that we possibly can. There was no thought of canceling the game on Sunday or postponing the game on Sunday. We've kept everybody as isolated as possible. We've followed all the protocols. this is what these agreements are in place to take care of. For the fact that, yes, 2, 3, 4 guys test positive, well, we got a taxi squad of 30 individuals. We've had the conversation of what is the number to shut things down? Is it 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? I'm not even sure it's that many, because Major League Baseball is going to say, hey, put those 15 in quarantine. You guys have upwards of 30 more to choose from. We could have upwards of 30 positive tests and still field a team. Now, there's going to be an instance where when you know, and it's a stupid thing to say, and it's tough to explain out there, but basically as fans of baseball, you guys are going to be very aware when the time comes of, hey, this is getting out of hand. We need to shut things down. Now, right now, it's 1 to 2 teams. It's a handful of guys. If this doesn't continue to grow in numbers here over the next week or so, I think it's just going to be, hey, this is what 2020 is. This is what we've talked about. We had Juan Soto test positive for the virus hours before opening day. He was asymptomatic, but Major League Baseball is coming off a pandemic. They're the only sport back, and one of the faces of the sport and one of the faces of opening day can't participate in the action because he tests positive. And basically the reaction from the fans, the media, everybody out there is just like, man, that stinks, but that's 2020. It's going to happen. The team that may have the most success is the team that can stay the healthiest. It's going to be fascinating to watch, but the Marlins, as they continue to take precautions, will not return to Miami from Philadelphia here Sunday night. They are going to wait till Monday. They actually have a home game in Miami Monday night, and they are still going to wait until Monday to return back to Miami because they want to see the results of Sunday's tests into Monday. Like I said, Saturday into Sunday, 3 more positive tests. They did the best they could. They want to see if Sunday into Monday, this leads to 4 more tests, 5 more tests, or if it comes back 1 more positive, 0 positives, fingers crossed here, they're going to continue on. They're going to move forward. Maybe those individuals stay in Philadelphia. Maybe they rent a car, try to get back to Florida. I don't exactly know what's taking place there. There's been some conversation around it, but nobody's kind of really come out and said, hey, these are the logistics if this is the case, such as what just happened to Jose Urena, who was supposed to be the starting pitcher and now can't play for a couple of weeks. So how does he get back down to Miami? How does he get back home? How does he deal with his family? These are all follow-up questions that we may never get answered because the MLB and HIPAA security reasons can't tell us. They're not going to be able to share this information. So we'll just see here. The Marlins, they return Monday. We'll get feedback, I'm sure, as soon as it's available. Share it on Twitter, Facebook, social media. Let you guys know what the results are of those cases or those tests for the Marlins and if they continue to play ball here moving forward. But the only other team that had really any issues was the Cincinnati Reds. And Reds manager David Bell basically came out and said Mike Moustakas came to the park or didn't come to the park, woke up feeling ill on Saturday. Let me say that again. Didn't go to the park. I don't want to put Moustakas in a spot where ultimately he was not. So played in the game Friday. Like I said, was a difference maker for the Royals or for the Reds, excuse me. And then he stays home because he's feeling ill. And then Nick Senzel stays home because he's feeling ill. So they're going to get tested. They're going to see if it's just food poisoning, just the coronavirus, or what's going on. Because I've had instances where I've gotten sick, food hasn't agreed with me, it does its thing, and then you're fine a day or two later. Now, was it the coronavirus? No, it was just the standard flu or standard illness that still continues to be a thing. The coronavirus just hasn't wiped out all other stomach bugs or food poisoning or any of that stuff. It's basically just put that all this at the forefront of people's minds going, well, I got a little bit of a fever or a cough. I got to get checked for this. And in Major League Baseball, that's absolutely the move. So feeling ill, stay home, get tested. I'm just saying let's not directly assume that means coronavirus. Now, yes, that's what everybody's going to think. They're going to get tested, and if we don't find out it's negative in a day or two, certainly that will be the assumption because the turnaround time with Major League Baseball tends to be a little bit more advanced than some other entities out there. But it's just, man, so you got the Reds dealing with some issues. You got the Marlins dealing with some issues. this is going to be a thing. It's just going to be kind of fascinating to watch to see if 3 turns to 6, turns to 10, or if 3 turns to 1, turns to 0, if they're able to catch it in time and mitigate the spread of the virus, or if it's one of those things that just having people this close together and as cautious as you can be, it's still going to hit that number and you just can't play the game of Major League Baseball or have sports where you're not sequestered or isolated in a bubble like the NBA or the NHL is doing over the next month or 6 weeks or so. But we'll keep you guys updated on everything coronavirus out there that's going on. I'm sure you're aware. It's basically at the top of every media outlet and what's happening here with this Marlins team. It's kind of on the subtext right now, but I'm certainly going to keep you guys posted over the next couple of days. So follow us on social media. You'll stay updated with everything that's going on. Now here in this segment, the third segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, I want to touch on the Toronto Blue Jays. And I told you guys on Thursday that it had to be the spring training facility. There was no way that they'd be able to go to Buffalo and get it done in a week to 10 days, all the upgrades that they had to do to that facility. Well, part of me was right and part of me was wrong. And I'm going to say I was more right than wrong. So, yeah. But, no, Toronto, it has come out that they are eventually going to be playing their games in the city of Buffalo at their AAA complex. But the first home game for them isn't going to take place until August 11th. So I said it wouldn't be ready in a week. It's not going to be ready in a week. I didn't think that they were going to do what they're going to do until it is ready, which is play home games on the road. They're going to be in Philadelphia. If they're the home team, the game was supposed to be in Toronto. Well, they're the home team. They're going to be at the bottom of the scoreboard. They're going to run out there first, but everything's going to be in Philadelphia. So they're going to be 100% on the road for the next 3 weeks or so, like I said, until the 11th, when they can get that stadium upgraded to everything Major League capacity. We talked about the lighting. We talked about the facilities. Well, that's a big one. I mean, clubhouse, medical, all of that for not only the home team, but the road team there in Buffalo as well. Because minor league parks, kind of similar to college stadiums or NFL stadiums, they have less regulations on the away side of things. If you've ever toured an NFL stadium, the home locker room is just gorgeous, huge, multiple. And then you go to the away locker room and it looks like a high school locker room where you used to play football. So I can only imagine minor league baseball facilities being similar. The showers, the bathrooms, all of that stuff going to have to be upgraded in size, capacity, neatness, niceness, just to hit the standards of Major League Baseball. So that's why it's going to take 3 weeks. And I'm sure they'll be working on that thing almost 24/7 to make sure it happens in that amount of time, because that's a quick turnaround to get all those lights up, get that changed while working on the behind-the-scenes facilities is going to be interesting to see. But the Blue Jays do find a home in Buffalo at the AAA facility, and they will not head back down to spring training down to Florida, which I thought would be the destination. They've decided instead of doing that until everything is ready in August, they're just going to play on the road as the home team. And so be it. I mean, that's 2020. That's Toronto. It really does stink for them, and it's a disadvantage for the Blue Jays for sure. But I'm sure those guys are excited, at least for the second half, if not a little bit longer than that, to actually have a home base close to Toronto. Yes, it'll be in the States, so they won't be able to go back and forth due to the quarantine and everything like that. But they will be able to kind of find a niche home and be able to feel comfortable, at least a little bit there in the state of New York, as opposed to down in Florida, being very, very far from the city of Toronto. So the Blue Jays, it'll be interesting. Hey, we're in Philadelphia, but they're the home team, so keep an eye out for that here moving forward. But wrapping up the third segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, I just wanted to dive into some statistics offensively. I know during the break there I would go into the sabermetrics or the simulations, Baseball Reference, Stratomatic. Well, now keeping you guys updated on what's going on here across the league and basically who's hitting the cover off the ball this first weekend. You're looking at my man Miguel Rojas in Miami, shortstop. He was hitting 8th for the Marlins in every one of these games, even though he's hitting 700. He was 7 for 10 over 3 games with a double, a triple, a homer, 5 RBIs, 1 walk, 1 steal, tore things up out of the 8-hole. And they just didn't move him up in the lineup. I didn't understand it, but hey, if you're hot, keep him there. See fastballs, hit 700, do your thing. So fascinating to watch Rojas just hit the ball all over the yard. Jackie Brackley Jr. for Boston in a losing effort over the weekend. He's hitting .636. He finds himself 7 for 11 with a couple of doubles. David Fletcher for the Angels. He is 6 for 11, 545. Nelson Cruz, 7 for 13 with 2 doubles and 3 home runs, 10 RBIs. Jose Iglesias hitting .538. Hanser Alberto for Baltimore hitting .500. So Baltimore's offense, I didn't expect to see Iglesias and Alberto both hitting over .500 for the first weekend there. So a ton of guys still over .500. Will somebody hit .400 this summer? I'm not so sure, but I'm certainly going to keep you guys up to date on what's going on and who the league leaders are at every current point here. Let's look at home runs. Like I said, Nelson Cruz leads the way with 3 of them. Jesus Aguilar hit 2 against the Phils for the Marlins. CJ Cron has 2 for Detroit. Garcia, a couple for Detroit. Gosselin and D.D. Gregorius have 2. D.D. hit 1 on Friday and Saturday. He's off to a tremendous start, 4 for 11. 2 home runs there for the Fightin' Phils, playing excellent defense at shortstop. He's going to get paid here moving forward a little bit. But a ton of guys with 2 of them out there. So that's where everybody's at here currently. Looking at home runs, let's look at RBIs quickly. Nelson Cruz has 10 of them through the opening weekend. Wow, 10 RBIs in 3 games. Eric Hosmer had 7. He had 6 of them opening night, like I talked about with you guys. Jack Cave, center fielder for the Twins, has 6. Maldonado has 6 for Houston. Dansby Swanson, there it is. Swanson's the guy. That's the name I was looking for with the Braves in the second segment, talking about the extra inning winner. He has 6 there offensively as well. And then on the pitching side of things, it's still too early to really dive around. Starters have only had one game started. Relief pitchers have a couple of different appearances. Let's see who leads the league. If anybody's been in all 3 games, no, only a bunch of guys have been in 2 thus far. Your strikeout leader early on, though, like we touched on, a lot of Cincinnati Reds at the top of the list, but Bieber leads the way with 14. Bauer, Castillo, Scherzer had 11. Carrasco had 10. Those guys are in double digits on the mound. So shout out to those guys who find themselves having a quality plus opening weekend here. But that'll wrap it up here for the third segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. The Braves keep playing Home Run Derby. It's up to 14-1 here Sunday night as I'm enjoying watching baseball while I'm talking to you guys listening out there about it. But let's pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. When we come back, we're going to wrap up today's episode talking about series number 2, the next matchups. What are we looking at? Who can get buried here early on? Let's talk about it. So stick around, everybody. I am Kevin Mahalik. We'll be right back.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone, to the fourth and final segment of today's episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, here on Mondays and Thursdays of the Baseball Podcast. If you haven't done so yet, leave 5 stars. Put my name in the review. Say, hey, this Mahalik guy's great. I love him. He's hilarious. We're talking baseball. It's fantastic. Or if you didn't like today's episode, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Just move on. It's cool. We appreciate you checking it out, but no problem. No harm, no foul. But if you did like it, share it with one of your friends. I like to ask the listeners, every one of my episodes, just share it with one friend a week. Hit those 3 little dots there that you're seeing on your screen. Hit share, messages, send it to one of your buddies that you're in your fantasy baseball league with. Send it to your brother, your brother-in-law, anybody who's into sports. It's your sister-in-law. They're into baseball. Say, hey, check this out. Daily content talking Major League Baseball. It's fantastic. This Mahalik guy's great on Mondays and Thursdays. I very much appreciate it. But let's dive into series number 2 as we're wrapping up today's episode here, discussing all things Major League Baseball. We talked about in the first couple of segments this past weekend where we're at currently. Last segment, we talked about some of the hiccups that are going on across Major League Baseball. But here, wrapping up today's show, I want to talk about where do we go from here? What's up next? What's going to happen between today and Thursday when I talk to you guys once again? And we'll jump around from the East, the Central, and the West, both the American League and the National League. There's a little bit more interleague play happening within these next couple of series here, so I really just want to break things down in regards to kind of East, Central, West, not so much American League, National League, like I did a bit earlier here. And starting out with the East, we have Toronto traveling to Washington to take on the Nationals. And Toronto comes in at 1-2, the Nationals at 1-2 themselves. This is a big series for Washington. Like we said, Toronto, they're known as kind of one of the 2 or 3 bottom tier teams in the American League East. Washington, obviously, looking to repeat as World Series champions. They were picked possibly second, first in this division. The Yankees, very, very good, so there's really no shame in losing 2 out of 3 to them. But if you have 4 here against Toronto, I believe it is, even if it's 3 and you don't at least split or take 2 out of 3, there's some alarms that could start to sound in Washington because, once again, with each game being kind of 2.7, 2.8 games, you're looking at 5-3 or 3-5. All of a sudden, you lose 2 out of 3 again. You're 6-10, going, hey, this isn't really what we were looking for here early on as we're looking to repeat as champs. Last year, we talked about how we can't get off to that rough start again because there's not enough time to turn it around here in 2020. Next up for the Braves, they travel to Tampa Bay to take on the Rays. The Rays themselves, 2-1. The Braves will be 2-1. This will be an excellent matchup moving forward here. I'm looking forward to this one. The pitching matchups should be fantastic for both of them. Tampa Bay with that rotation, Atlanta with that rotation. Let's see if I could find some matchups for you. Kyle Wright versus Chirinos in Tuesday's matchup. Monday's matchup is Foltynewicz versus Glasnow. So that'll be a fantastic matchup here tonight on the 27th. And then Wednesday, if things align correctly, we can see that we have Charlie Morton versus Mike Soroka going back at it as both of them get their second start. So fantastic pitching matchups down there in Tampa Bay. As a Phillies fan, go Rays. But that'll be a matchup to watch for any baseball fan over the next 3 days. That'll be quality baseball and potentially a World Series matchup. Now, I know they're both not the favorites, but they're both certainly playoff contenders who, if they could make a run, could run back into each other. Then you got the Yankees and Phillies. I'll say the same thing. Possible World Series. No, I'm just kidding. I can't put the Phillies anywhere near that breath after that bullpen and atrocious pitching performance opening weekend against the Marlins. They're now facing the 2-1 Yankees. You got 4 of them. We got Garrett Cole versus Zach Eflin on Tuesday after a Monday matchup of J.A. Happ and Jake Arrieta. The Phils really got to get that one. They really got to get to Happ because, like I said, you got Cole going in Tuesday's matchup, Wednesday's matchup, Nola versus Montgomery. You got to feel good about that one. And then Wheeler potentially going game 4. So the pitching actually does favor the Phillies here as they line things up. It's just that offensive lineup in New York, that juggernaut, that once you get beyond the starting pitching in Philadelphia, there's names on there that I don't even know or I've never heard of, and I'm a diehard Phillies fan. So anybody who fancies themselves a casual baseball fan is going to have no idea who these people are in the bullpen that they're running out here. It's so frustrating because Matt Klentak, the general manager, did absolutely nothing to address the bullpen, which if you watch the games, you knew was just in shambles all of last year, and all they kept doing was flaunting that their bullpen had the 4th lowest ERA in the second half last year, and it was all smoke and mirrors, all bells and whistles, no substance, and everybody saw it except for the general manager. So the Phillies are in for a long summer if this offense can't start winning them some games like the Twins and White Sox did in the opening weekend. We got Baltimore at Miami. Surprise 2-1 versus surprise 2-1. I think I'm going to keep riding the Baltimore momentum. They got Wojciechowski versus Lopez Monday. Let's see, then Stewart versus Hernandez, and again, don't really know many of these guys. Alcantara versus Malone once again, but the Marlins really do just own the Phillies, and I think Baltimore actually played much better baseball. So I think Baltimore can keep things going here early on, maybe be a bit of a surprise through a week or two, but somebody there is going to win another series, so either the Marlins or the Orioles are going to be feeling good a week into this 2020 season. Wrapping up the East, you got the New York Mets versus the Boston Red Sox. Disappointing 1-2 versus disappointing 1-2 here. The Mets coming off a butt kicking, like I said, it's 14-1. Here still late in today's matchup, Boston losing 2 to Baltimore. They can't be pleased. The pitching matchup Monday, Waka versus Osich. That favors the New York Mets there, you would think. Then Tuesday, undecided versus Matt Hall for the Bo Sox. And then in Wednesday's matchup, Eovaldi versus DeGrom, and everybody knows DeGrom. So the Mets got to feel good about Game 3, which means Boston has a little bit of pressure to come in hot and take games 1 and 2 here over the next couple of days to try to win a series against the Mets and get back to 500. But that wraps it up for the Eastern teams. Jumping over now to the Central, the Chicago Cubs at the Cincinnati Reds. That'll be a fun matchup. The Reds looking to bounce back. That bullpen really looking to get it going. John Lester versus Wade Miley on Monday. A couple of lefties going at it there. A couple of veterans, guys who know how to win, know how to pitch. Alec Mills versus Tyler Mahee on Tuesday for the Reds there. Mahee trying to establish himself on the back end. And then Hendricks versus Gray as the starters and opening day aces come back around for Wednesday's matchup. So the Cubbies and the Reds, both 2-1. That'll be fun to watch. A tough NL Central early season inter-squad, the Reds at 1-2 are looking to bounce back and chase those Cubbies who took 2 out of 3 from the Brewers. Speaking of the Brewers, they head to Pittsburgh to take on the Pirates. You would expect at least 2 out of 3 there. Hauser versus Brault in Game 1. And then we have Lindblom versus Holland in Game 2, and then wrapping things up, Woodruff and Musgrove back on the bump for Milwaukee and Pittsburgh there. We have the White Sox at the Indians. This will be a fun one to watch here in the AL Central. The Indians 2-1, the White Sox 1-2. Chicago will look to continue to bounce back. That offense continues to rake. Now going to Cleveland with that pitching staff. You got Cease versus Savali on Monday, and then Tuesday matchup. Let's see here. We have Rondon versus Plesac, and then Wednesday, getting back around to the Aces. In this matchup, we're going to go with Giolito and Bieber. We'll see if Bieber can repeat his performance with 14 Ks in 6 innings. Kansas City and Detroit. Detroit is surprised 2-1, but both of these teams really not at the top of the list of games you need to check out. Montgomery versus Fulmer. Fulmer going for Detroit. I like him in that matchup there. Undecided versus Grazel for Detroit. Kansas City doesn't know who's going yet on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Danny Duffy versus Matthew Boyd with the Aces coming back around. Wrapping up the Central here, we got the St. Louis Cardinals at the Minnesota Twins. So you have a lot of inter-squad. It looks like 2 on each side, but with 5 teams in each division, 2-2, 2-2, and then 1-1 across the board here. So this time around, it's going to be the 2-1 Twins versus the 2-1 Cardinals. This will be a fascinating interleague divisional matchup that typically doesn't happen, but now 2020 gives us a glimpse here. I'm kind of fascinated to watch these two teams play against each other, a bit of contrasting style. Minnesota loves themselves the deep ball, and St. Louis fancies the more solid game of all-around baseball. Let's see here. Minnesota, they play on Tuesday. St. Louis will go with Carlos Martinez versus Homer Bailey, who will throw for the Twins. And then Wednesday's matchup, we have Miles McCollus versus Rich Hill. So a couple of solid pitching matchups, bottom end of the rotation there before they get back to the top with the off day on Monday for St. Louis and Minnesota. They get an early off day after the opening weekend. Rounding things out here with the schedule, heading out west at the top, we have Arizona at Texas. Texas continues to host here a homestand with the new ballpark right off the bat. Major League Baseball trying to flaunt the new facilities out there. Texas trying to stick around and not get run out of the building here early on. They went 1-2 this opening weekend, but so did Arizona. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Padres. So Arizona will certainly look to take advantage of Texas because on paper, they're certainly the much better team. But Arizona and the Western teams, they're wrapping up their 4-game set on Monday. So LA and Oakland will play a fourth. Arizona and San Diego will play a fourth, just as LA and San Fran are playing a fourth here late Sunday night. I don't have that result for you. So we're basically looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday's matchups here in the Western Division with Arizona and Texas. And Merrill Kelly going against Kyle Gibson. Gibby throwing for Texas down there. Very solid starter, good dude. Been around him a couple of times in the big league level there in Minnesota during his past life with the Twinkies. So shout out to Gibby. Always kind of root for him when I see him throw. And then Wednesday's matchup, let's see here. Arizona, can I find them? It's a day game, 4 o'clock. Madison Bumgarner versus Lance Lynn as the starters come back around. That'll be a fun one to watch. That pitching matchup, certainly intriguing. Lance Lynn has the only win for Texas early on. And Bumgarner, we all know the history of Bumgarner, so it's certainly fun watching him throw the rock all the time. The Dodgers play the Astros. Here we go. This is it. Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've been waiting for. I know I sing that all the time, but this is the matchup starting on Tuesday. We talked about it. Are the Dodgers going to drill the Astros? Is there going to be payback? Is there going to be animosity between the two teams? What's going to happen? Well, it's all going to come to a head. Now, granted, this one's in Houston, but again, no fans. It really doesn't matter. In L.A., it would obviously be very, very ruckus if Houston came to town. But L.A. going to Houston. We got Walker Buehler versus Framber Valdez on Tuesday night. Obviously in favor of Buehler there. And then Wednesday's matchup, moving forward, before I talk to you guys again Wednesday night, let's see here. Houston, can I find you? Yes, there you are. L.A., Dustin May versus undecided for Houston. So advantage LA Dodgers, but Houston 2-1 early on, could have been 3-0. Really the closest team to sweeping this opening weekend was the Dodgers and Houston. So potential World Series matchup, interdivisional matchup, going to be a lot of fun to see if anything, quote unquote, gets away from the starting pitcher for the Dodgers that day. Let's see. Seattle at LA is going to be taking place here starting on Tuesday. We have Sheffield versus undecided for the Angels, and then Wednesday's matchup of Justin Dunn versus Andrew Heaney coming back around for the Angels. Mike Trout continuing to look to pull them, offensively. He went yard on a 3-0 pitch. It was the first time he hit a home run in his career on a 3-0 pitch. How fascinating is that? I wanted to mention that during the earlier segment. I forgot to write it down, but first career home run on a 3-0 pitch, and only his, I think, third or fourth hit after or on a 3-0 pitch. Very, very rarely does Mike Trout take a hack 3-0, and he decided here opening weekend, 2020 is a new year, I'm going to let it rip. And Michael Fyers threw that fastball right down the middle, and Mike Trout said, nope, not watching those go by this year. I'm going to take advantage. So it was fun to watch him launch a baseball into orbit here early on. We got the Rockies versus the A's out west here starting out on Tuesday. Antonio Centella versus Daniel Megden for the Oakland A's going out there on Wednesday's matchup. Let's see, they're playing a day game at 3:40. Germain Marquez versus Frankie Montas as the Aces come back around for them as well. And then the last matchup as we wrap things up here is San Diego at San Francisco. No starters lined up for either team on Tuesday, but Wednesday, Chris Paddock versus Johnny Cueto. Chris Paddock in line once again. I loved him opening day. He was electric, but Johnny Cueto was fantastic as well. Things really didn't go downhill against the Dodgers until after he exited the game. So the Dodgers and the Astros will be a fantastic series to watch there. In the Central, the Cubbies Reds will be a good one. Indians White Sox will be solid. St. Louis Minnesota will be fun to watch. And then in the East, Yankees Phillies, Atlanta Rays are really the two there, with the Mets and Boston having a little bit of fun as well. But this East-East, Central-Central, West-West thing is a lot of fun when you kind of start breaking down, looking at matchups. Yankees Phils, that's excellent. Cardinals Twins, let's go. Let's have some fun here. But thanks everybody for listening. That pretty much wraps up today's episode. It was a lot of fun talking actual baseball with you guys. You have no idea how much easier it makes life for me as I'm kind of getting ready for the show, putting together my outline, taking down my notes. I'm going, what are you going to talk about? Oh, that's right, actual baseball games. Pull up box scores, pull up recaps. You don't have to do a ton of research, and it was just a ton of fun, and I can't wait to do this every episode going forward, kind of taking a look back as well as previewing what's to happen moving forward. But if you guys come up with any topics, if you have anything you want to discuss, reach out on social media, shoot me a DM on Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is. Say, hey, let's talk about this, or you didn't talk about that. Let's make this an interactive community type effort, because I know you guys have the opportunity to listen to anything you want, and you clicked on the GSMC Baseball Podcast today to interact with myself. So I am your host, Kevin Mahalik. That'll do it for another episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Follow us on social media. Give us 5 stars wherever you're listening. But at the very most, enjoy the next couple of days, and I'll talk to you guys again on Thursday. Have a great night, everybody.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.